السلام عليكم، معاكم اليوم أرتي سارة. بغطي موضوع ال Pressure Support Ventilation Mode. بس قبل ما أبدأ بالdefinition and how it works and the advantage and disadvantages of this mode, I'll move to modes of ventilation in general. We can categorize them into three groups or three categories. We have the full support modes, and we have the partial support modes, and we have the spontaneous modes. So the full support stand for when the ventilator do all the work, like for example AC and CMV. And we have the partial support modes, which is mainly stand for the SIMV. And also we have spontaneous modes, which is CPAP and pressure support ventilation. So what is pressure support ventilation? It is a special form of assisted ventilation where the ventilator provides a constant pressure during inspiration once it senses that the patient has made an inspiratory effort. We have some parameters we set in pressure support mode, which is beep, FiO2, and inspiratory pressure, or we can say pressure support. Also, there is one parameter we set, which is the maximum inspiratory flow percentage, which is 25%. I'll explain in a second. Now, regarding the trigger or limit or cycle, it is triggered by the flow, which is patient trigger, and limited by pressure, which is the pressure support we set. It cannot exceed it. For example, if you put a 10 pressure support above the beep, the patient cannot generate more than 10. So here I have this diagram. This is my ventilator, and this is my circuit, my ATT inside my patient. All of these, like, I can consider it as a resistance the patient will face while breathing against this ventilator and this ATT. Okay, so the idea of pressure support is helping or supporting my patient with minimal settings to help him breathe by his own. So I'm gonna add like an extra flow and extra pressure to help to take away some of the resistance that the patient have to breathe against. So the ventilator will not push or force the air or the breath inside the lungs like it would be in a pressure control mode. So the idea only, it will help the patient to take his breath by adding a little pressure and flow. Okay, so there is an important point I need to know before starting pressure support mode. أول شيء أحتاج أعرف إنه my patient have a consistent, reliable, spontaneous respiration for my pressure support mode to be started. Or in other words, we can say that a patient without a severe respiratory failure who's having a good respiratory drive. Also, I need to know that when I'm using a pressure support mode and there is any changes in the mechanical properties of the lung or thorax or the patient effort, my delivered tidal volume will be affected. So after that, my expiratory phase will be started and my beep will be applied in this phase. After that, we will finish a complete breath, inspiratory and expiratory phase, and so on. Now we reach a point of how does pressure support ventilation work. زي ما قلنا ال pressure support mode هو عبارة عن مود يحتاج إنه ال patient initiate or trigger each breath by his own. Okay, so when the patient inhaled and generate inspiratory flow here, the patient will inhale and generate inspiratory flow. The ventilator will sense the drop in the flow and rapidly will deliver my preset inspiratory pressure, أو نقدر نقول pressure support 10, 12, whatever. After that, my inspiratory flow will stop when a certain threshold is reached, which is دائما يكون cycling off عند 25% of my maximal inspiratory flow. Once إن الفنتليتر وصلت عند هذه threshold of 25%, it will end the inspiration and start expiration. Then after that, my expiratory phase will be started and my beep will be applied in this phase. After that, we will finish a complete breath, inspiratory and expiratory phase, and so on. The advantages of pressure support. One, it could improve the patient comfort by decreasing the work of breathing mainly. It is proportional to the pressure support we set in the ventilator. يعني أنا لما أعطي pressure support 5 مو نفس لما أعطي pressure support of 10. And I can see the changes in tidal volume. As I increase the pressure support, my tidal volume will be more. طبعا كل هذه تعتمد, and it's like a factor can interfere with each other. Tidal volume, lung mechanics, if my patient is in sedative agents. I need to see the whole picture يعني. Also, it reduced the cardiovascular effect. It reduced the risk of barotrauma. And the last point, it improved the distribution of gas. Now, the disadvantages of pressure support, that my tidal volume is not controlled and it is dependent on respiratory mechanics, the air resistance and lung compliance, the cycling frequency and synchrony between my patient and the ventilator. So mainly, the issue is my minute ventilation is not guaranteed and my tidal volume is not guaranteed. So my patient could have either hypoventilation or hyperventilation. Okay, and also my pressure support may be poorly tolerated in some patients with highly airways resistance because of the preset high initial flow rates. Other than that, pressure support, as I was saying, despite those disadvantages, PSV mode, it's like largely being used as a weaning mode for patients from ventilatory support, because it's like providing a simple way to reduce the magnitude of mechanical support while the patient in the same time doing all the job, let's say most of the job of ventilatory work needed.